Scandinavian Airlines and the city of Chicago have a long-standing relationship, one that goes back over 60 years. Today, we're flying Scandinavia's flag carrier from Oslo back to Chicago via Copenhagen. Apart from surviving the middle seat the entire journey home, we'll explore Copenhagen for a bit and also discuss the significance of Chicago as a destination for SAS. With that said, I'm glad you're joining me, and let's get this journey started. Our day begins very early here in Oslo, which thankfully, after visiting all three Scandinavian capitals on this trip, was the only one where I dealt with snow, and I say thankfully because the weather in Chicago was a lot worse. Regardless, because of the weather, I spent most of my day at my hotel just beside Copenhagen Airport. In the afternoon, I walked about a mile through the snow up to the SAS Museum, where I did some plane spotting from the rooftop terrace. I was really glad to have visited, as the museum only opens twice a week on Sundays and Tuesdays. With free admission, friendly and knowledgeable staff, and no shortage of super cool Scandinavian Airlines history, I really enjoyed my visit and would recommend you do the same if you get the chance when visiting Oslo. But now it's 3 a.m. and time to begin our long journey home. I stayed at the Comfort Hotel runway just beside the airport and enjoyed my stay. My only grievance is that the USB ports in my room didn't work, and because I'm a genius and didn't pack a travel adapter, I had to use the USB ports in the lobby to charge my phone. Otherwise, with comfortable rooms and free breakfast, you can't go wrong. The Comfort Hotel is connected to Oslo Airport via the S44 shuttle. Unfortunately, the shuttle isn't free. It costs 80 Norwegian kroner, a little over $8, which is kinda ridiculous actually, and runs every 15 to 30 minutes or so between 4 a.m. and 12 a.m. Now, given my first flight to Copenhagen was around 5:15, I was worried that I'd be in a massive time crunch. But thankfully, there was nothing to worry about, as check-in was remarkably swift. Within just 5 minutes, I had both boarding passes in hand, and because the Chicago flight was completely full, I was able to check in my carry-on suitcase, which was a huge relief given I was planning to leave Copenhagen Airport and explore the city during my 7-hour layover. Oslo was by far my favorite out of Scandinavia's 3 largest airports. Almost in direct contrast to Copenhagen, Copenhagen Airport's terminal is very open, and its large windows allow for lots of natural light during the daytime. The terminal is also built extensively from environmentally friendly materials, and the widespread use of wood gives it a very modern but also cozy feel. Security check this morning was also very easy, and because Denmark is within the Schengen area, there were no additional passport checks or formalities. Now, as I covered in an earlier video, SAS overall operates around 80 A320neos, but 32 of them operate for SAS Connect and are registered in Ireland. Our aircraft today is one of the 46 examples operating for SAS Mainline, and these aircraft carry Norwegian or Swedish registrations. Regardless, all of SAS's A320neos are the same configuration-wise, with 180 seats. I booked this trip under SAS's cheapest fare, Go Light, which doesn't include complimentary seat selection. For whatever reason, I decided not to pre-book my seats because I didn't think the flights would be that full, and getting a window seat wouldn't be that hard. While this was totally the case on my flights to Stockholm, both flights going back to Chicago today were completely full, and I was assigned middle seats for both. The seats on the A320neos are just like what you'd normally find on European short-haul aircraft. The comfort and leg space is just fine, and there's no complaints for this 1-hour flight. And soon enough, we pushed off the gate on time and departed without any delays. Complimentary service on this flight consisted of tea, coffee, and water, and given it was going to be a long day, I decided to go for a coffee and got some water with it as well. Overall, an uneventful flight that I tried to sleep however much I could. I also appreciate the seats having coat hooks where I could hang my jacket before putting it back on while deplaning. And soon enough, we began our descent into Copenhagen, landing right at the beginning of sunrise. And welcome to Copenhagen, where I purposely booked a long 7-hour layover just so I could have some time to explore the city. The weather wasn't even that bad, hanging around the high 30s to low 40s, and I'm American, so I'm talking in Fahrenheit, of course. And with clear, sunny weather expected, I was really excited to go explore Copenhagen. But first, how cool is this? Seeing an Air Greenland aircraft was always a fantasy for me, given they don't fly anywhere apart from Greenland, Iceland, and Denmark. But here she is, Air Greenland's only wide-body aircraft, primarily used for the service between Nuuk and Copenhagen. And actually, this particular route has only been operating since 2024, when Nuuk Airport was expanded to handle wide-body aircraft. Before that, the Copenhagen service operated from Kangerlussuaq, as that was the only airport with a long enough runway for the A330. As with most major European airports, Copenhagen Kastrup Airport is easily connected to the city center via multiple railway lines. While the airport has a dedicated intercity railway station with services throughout Denmark and across to Sweden, there's also the Copenhagen Metro, and that's what I decided on. For 30 Danish kroner, or about $4.77, I purchased a one-way ticket into the city. I visited on a standard Monday morning, meaning I got to witness firsthand just how huge the cycling culture is here in Copenhagen. With over 400 kilometers or around 250 miles of bike lanes, around 62% of locals in Copenhagen commute by bike, with bikes even outnumbering cars here. Copenhagen was established in 1167, initially as a Viking fishing village. In fact, its name, København, directly translates to Merchant's Harbor. I had a great few hours grabbing breakfast and strolling around the city, especially admiring Nyhavn or New Harbor, a 17th century waterfront district in the city renowned for its brightly colored townhomes. After just under 3 hours in the city, I hopped on the M2 metro back to the airport, not wanting to risk anything. The journey itself between the city center and the airport takes just under 15 minutes. Having already checked in for the Chicago flight back in Oslo, I proceeded directly to security check, which was packed, and took around 25 minutes to clear. After wandering the terminal, I finally made my way to the Sea Gates, the main concourse serving Copenhagen's intercontinental flights. Now, before you enter the Sea Gates, all passengers clear passport control, and even before, when I was passing through here on my way to Stockholm a few days earlier, I knew this was going to be an absolute mess. Passport control was understaffed, and with hundreds of fellow passengers going elsewhere in the US, UK, Dubai, etc., we were in line for around 45 minutes, but that is nowhere near the worst experience that I've ever had. The Sea Gates offer some incredible views of the aircraft here, and the best part is that they're mostly wide-body planes. Copenhagen is the primary hub for Scandinavian Airlines, and as such, the vast majority of the airline's transcontinental routes operate from here. Overall, Kastrup Airport is a major international hub, one of the busiest in Europe and the busiest in Scandinavia and the Nordic region. That's also made very clear by the diverse lineup of international carriers that serve the airport. Serving the Southeast and Far East Asian destinations include Singapore Airlines to Singapore, Thai Airways to Bangkok, Air India to Delhi, Air China to Beijing, China Eastern to Shanghai, and Vietnam Airlines to Ho Chi Minh City. Indigo operated 787 service between Mumbai and Copenhagen, but as of February 17th, that service will be ending. And until 2020, Pakistan International Airlines also served Copenhagen from Lahore and Islamabad, with Fifth Freedom flights to Oslo as well. But following PIA's European ban, those routes have been suspended for over 6 years, but with the airline now slowly reinstating European service, I hope to see Copenhagen and Oslo both return to the airline's network. Moving into Africa and the Middle East, Copenhagen sees Qatar Airways from Doha, Emirates from Dubai, Etihad Airways from Abu Dhabi, Ethiopian from Addis Ababa, Egypt Air from Cairo, Air Cairo with seasonal flights to Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada, and as of December 2025, Oman Air from Muscat via Baghdad, Iraq. That service I would assume is mainly to fill the gap left by Iraqi Airways, who previously flew to Copenhagen. And I also just want to mention this trip was my first time ever seeing a CRJ-1000. The United States is known for being the regional jet capital of the world, but thanks to regional airline politics, the CRJ-1000 and also the new Embraer E2s have and will never be able to enter service with the US carriers. It's a long story. Scandinavian Airlines' primary long-haul market is the United States, and most of the US flights depart within the same afternoon timeframe. While SAS mainly focuses on connecting travelers between American and European cities, it also has a growing presence in Asia. In fact, before this trip, I had no idea SAS had flights from Copenhagen to Beirut in Lebanon. And later this year, SAS is beginning year-round service from Copenhagen to Mumbai, filling the gap left by Indigo. The airline will also launch seasonal services to Dubai World Central and Krabi and Phuket, Thailand. SAS was one of the 5 founding members of Star Alliance back in 1997. But as part of a massive restructuring, SAS departed the alliance in 2024, joining SkyTeam the very next day. And if you look closely at some aircraft, you might be able to see where the Star Alliance logo used to be, with the new SkyTeam logo slapped on top. But there are also many aircraft that don't have the new SkyTeam logos at all. Over at gate C37 was Ingeborg Viking, the A350 I flew on from Chicago some days earlier. Today it's going to be flying across to San Francisco. And arriving across the hall from San Francisco is Sierra Echo Romeo Sierra Charlie, our A350-900 back to Chicago this afternoon. While SAS and Chicago have a storied history together, Chicago wasn't the airline's first destination in the US. In 1946, SAS began service using DC-4 aircraft to New York LaGuardia. Yes, LaGuardia. Eventually, as planes got bigger, intercontinental flights were shifted to Idlewild Airport, later renamed John F. Kennedy International. SAS then began flights to Los Angeles in 1954, becoming the first airline to fly over the North Pole to the US West Coast. Service to Chicago began on April 2, 1964 with DC-833s flying from Copenhagen to Chicago via Montreal. Eventually, the route became nonstop from Copenhagen, and while it once operated as flight SK941 and 942, the flight numbers were changed many years ago to SK943 and 944. SAS has flown a variety of equipment to Chicago over the years, including the McDonnell Douglas DC-10, Boeing 767-300, and most recently the Airbus A340-300 until its retirement in 2020. One of my favorite planes to see growing up was Astrid Viking, the Star Alliance A340, which I remember seeing many times in Chicago and Newark. Chicago is also significant in that it was the inaugural destination for the SAS A350 when it began flights in 2020. Today, SAS operates both A330-300s and A350s to Chicago, with the A330s primarily operating during the spring and summer months, while the A350s take over during fall and winter. At one point, SAS also operated seasonal service between Stockholm and Chicago on A330s, its only other long-haul route from Stockholm apart from Newark, but unfortunately that service was suspended in 2023. Boarding started a bit late given the aircraft arrived late from San Francisco, but I was absolutely thrilled to be pulled aside, taken into a small room, and have my bags randomly searched. I didn't even have the 4 S's on my boarding pass, so I don't know what that was all about. Thankfully, the officers were nice, and after soon realizing that I was indeed not a threat, I boarded without issue. SAS's A350 seats 300 passengers with 40 in business, 32 in premium economy, and 228 in standard economy. I was assigned 45B this afternoon, and if you're curious, standard seat selection for this flight would have set me back around $25 to $30. Regardless, the seats are very comfortable with fabric covers and adjustable headrests. There is a personal entertainment screen with a USB-A port, a literature shelf, and a seat pocket, with all passengers being provided bottles of water, alongside blankets and pillows. The A350 is known for having an onboard tail camera, which I was looking forward to using for takeoff. Unfortunately, however, the entertainment screens were not activated until we reached cruising altitude.
The evacuation slides. Jump onto the slides and move away from the aircraft. If the aircraft has had to land on water, these slides detach to form rafts. The crew is on board for your safety. It is important that you follow their...
Soon enough, the entertainment systems were activated, and overall, SAS has a nice and organized interface. There's plenty of content options, including a dedicated section for kids' entertainment. The moving map is not interactive, but it provides basically everything you need from an in-flight map. I also liked how you can toggle between destination and origin local times, and the screen is also the primary point of control for the overhead lights and call buttons. One full complimentary meal is served on this flight, and I had pre-ordered one of the premium meals on SAS's website before my trip. The premium meals come with 2 drinks, in my case apple juice and Sprite, and cost $29 to reserve. Standard economy class meals on SAS are usually just one option, but with the premium meals you have more choices. I had pre-ordered the fish option that came with asparagus and potatoes, alongside a bread roll and another fish kind of salad. The meal also came with butter and cheese, a dry cracker, and a small cookie for dessert. Honestly, the presentation and quantity really wasn't much different from the standard meals, the only real differences being the addition of glassware and metal cutlery. Yes, the taste and quality was mostly good and I can't complain, but for $29 I feel that was a bit too much for a glorified economy class meal. Around an hour before arrival, pre-landing snacks were distributed consisting of a margarita pizza twist and some fruit juice. And not much long after, we began our descent into Chicago. This evening, our approach brought us in from the east, descending over Lake Michigan, passing by downtown Chicago, and landing on runway 27 Center. I booked a multi-city ticket in SAS's cheapest Go Light fare for just under $475, a fantastic deal, and this isn't even the cheapest that you might find. On certain dates, you can find SAS tickets from Chicago to Stockholm or Gothenburg for as low as $360 round trip. And honestly, for the price that I paid, I was more than satisfied and pleased with SAS, and if I ever find a deal as good as I did, I will surely fly them again. Yes, the catering situation on SAS isn't the best, but if you do have dietary restrictions, I've been told on one of my earlier videos that you can pre-order special meals. I really don't know how I missed that during booking, but if anybody has further details about special meals and their pricing, what's offered, please drop me a comment below. But regardless, a great onboard product and also a great crew. I really enjoyed my experiences on Scandinavian Airlines. Chicago O'Hare is currently one of the only U.S. international airports with something called Enhanced Passenger Processing, or EPP. It's designed to speed up international arrivals for U.S. citizens. By using biometric facial technology to match your passport photo, it cuts down the usual immigration time by a huge amount. It took less than 15 minutes from getting off the plane to reaching baggage claim, something I never would have imagined was possible when clearing immigration, especially at O'Hare. But just like that, we are back in Chicago and it's time to head back home. Thank you so much for joining me today, and while this trip may be over, there's plenty of more videos on the way. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Take care everybody, and I will see you all again very soon.